What up, what up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers.
3,
Let's get busy.
2,
This has been Busy from the Burbs.
1.
Chip.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Busy from the Burbs, broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan. I am joined today by two very good friends of mine, two very special guests, Coleman Harrelson and Black Catz. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Go.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben.
Yo, what's poppin'?
Not much, fellas. The topic of discussion for today. What are we going to be talking about today? Vaccines. Like them, hate them, love them, want to have sex with them, want to marry them, want to do stuff to them, want to use them, want to divorce them, want to hate them. What do you want to do with them?
I'd like to do all of those things in that order to vaccines. Let's make sweet, sweet vaccinated babies.
Yeah, sweet, sweet love to my sweet, sweet vaccines. Well, as you know, both of you are familiar with the fact that some individuals in this country believe in some pretty hokey remedies, some pretty weird, throw salt behind your back, spin around 3 times, slap some some Vaseline on your nether regions, whatever you need to do. I don't know. They in some cultures they do this thing called coining, where they'll take a coin. This is particularly prevalent in Asian cultures, and they will literally scrape the back of their neck with a coin, and this is supposed to deliver some remedy for some ailment or something. One of the main arguments against vaccines is that they cause autism. Black Catz, what do you make of these positions, and where do you stand on the topic?
I mean, I would rather have a vaccine and have a risk of autism than develop something like smallpox. That just doesn't sound very good. And I mean, sure, you can avoid some vaccines like flu vaccines. I'm not one that particularly takes that one, mostly because when I start feeling like I'm getting sick, I just take a shitload of garlic and hit it with nothing but garlic.
The garlic. I just heard a Radiolab podcast about this old antibiotic remedy that was developed in the 6th century or something, where it's garlic, onion, and some other herbs and spices and some wine.
Sounds like a remedy I'm down for.
Hell yeah, pass the wine. Harrelson, what about you? You obviously hate wine, so maybe that one wouldn't be for you. You would like maybe the penis-flavored kind.
Oh, yes. I mean, semen is chock full of protein. Protein's good for your body. Glenn Beck logic.
Yes. For those who don't know, we had started recording, and then I realized that I didn't have Soundflower, which is this app that I use to bring audio into GarageBand going. So all of that was lost, but we had this whole section there about Glenn Beck logic and how he can take 2 completely disparate facts and connect them somehow by virtue of the fact that they both existed at one time or another on planet Earth.
You know who else is really good at that? Does it often on his show is Colbert.
Right.
Steven does the breakdown of cancer, and next thing you know, you're a terrorist if you're from Minnesota.
Well, the show has changed remarkably now that he's on CBS and has the Late Show. There's not a lot. There still is a lot of political satire, but it's much more all in the family, actually, because they were finding and are still finding now his ratings aren't that good. People think that he's alienating his audience.
Well, aside from that, I don't know, there are actually a few decent reasons why you might not want to get vaccinated, although it could just be a little bit of mass hysteria mixed in with it. Because
I would love to hear this.
So the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, the MMR vaccination, can potentially cause vaccine anaphylaxis.
That's not
at a rate of 1.8 per 1 million injections. So it's a really small amount. That's according to only one of them. Other sources are saying 1 per 1 million and 0.65 per 1 million.
I love what happens to statistics when they get like that large, where you have like 1.8 in 1 million injections. Like, who constitutes the 0.8 injection?
I mean, I was eighth of a person once.
Yeah, that's
Makes
true,
sense.
right? At some stage in your development in the womb.
Back when I was a child, you know.
Yes.
Before I had a personality.
When you were just a wee little blastopore, aka an anus.
Yes.
Sweet,
Human
sweet.
anu.
And then there's the diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccines. They apparently cause some crying continuously, convulsions or shock with full recovery, acute encephalopathy, which is really not a good. Yeah, that's your brain getting all swelled up. Yeah, and that's 10.5 per 1 million. But apparently, no cases of death, and that same statistic as well. So even though they had that, they recovered fully.
You just get a massive headache, and then it subsides, and then
with those statistics, is there, even in the small percentages that they are, is there a direct correlation? Like the thing that these anti-vaccine people get at is that it causes this.
Yeah.
But if something causes something, you would expect to see it in much larger percentages, or could it just be like, you know, if you take a vaccine and then you're diagnosed with autism, that you had a genetic predisposition to getting autism?
So basically, like, the third variable.
The third variable. Is it that the vaccine is causing autism, or is it that maybe you already had autism that could have onset even, you know,
this
later
condition.
in life?
Wait a minute. What is the third variable? Is that like an actual formalized statistical term when talking about these drug reactions or something?
No, that's so okay.
Is that just colloquial?
When you have a third variable, you've got like a cause and effect, right?
Right.
But with the third variable, there is a third potential cause, right? Like so, what Harrelson said,
like dick size.
Yeah, well, no, you had the genetic predisposition for it, right? You know, like you're ready to go for having autism already, and just because you had the vaccine doesn't mean it caused your autism. You just happen to have the vaccine.
Right. It seems to me like there are hundreds, if not thousands, or millions of possible third variables. Like there's no ceiling on the variable space for the number or the kind of variable that could influence that outcome statistically.
Yeah, and the problem with that is people really pick up on that shit, especially with social media and just fucking regular media, and they get into a panic. There's this mass hysteria because people are very worried about their health, and when shit like that goes down, they freak out. They want to blame people because this shit shouldn't have happened, and it did.
Right. Wasn't that... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, while we're on this subject of like a predisposition, I'll throw out one of my main defenses of getting your fucking vaccines and vaccinating your children. Children already have not very strong immune systems as compared to an adult. They're growing, they're susceptible.
Right.
So here's my main thing to say to an anti-vaxxer, just to have them think. So obviously, most of these cases of the anti-vaxxers, it revolves around their children. If you're an adult, you probably would already know if you have autism. So let's say I have a child. We'll call my child John. He's 4 years old. And my neighbor has a child, Susie. She's 4 years old. They're in the same class at school together. Well, I may or may not know this, but let's just say that Susie, my neighbor's child, Susie, has an immunodeficiency. She's got an immune disorder. So how a vaccine works is it introduces just, a small amount of the virus, disease, whatever, into your bloodstream to train your body to know what
To fight it off,
produce to fight it off. So if you have a child with an immune disorder, their immune system is so lacking and so weak that they can't even take the smallest amount of a vaccine. It would make them sick.
Right.
They would not build up an immunity. So one of the big things about anti-vax logic is that you're saving your kid. But the thing is, if you have this child with an immune disorder, they're surrounded by other kids that should all have their vaccines.
Which they don't.
Means, which they may not. So
Right.
this child in a classroom or setting where everyone is vaccinated, they're still protected because the people around them are not carrying the disease to spread to them. So if my son, if I take my kid and I don't want him to be vaccinated for whatever reason, he might get, rubella or whatever, and go into class one day and infect this other child.
It's like a grenade.
So there's this, the logic of like, I want to protect my kid. I mean, yeah, you're a parent, protect your kid, but you have to think not just about yourself too. There's, even a small percentage of people, but it equates to
There's this thing, it's called society.
Yeah, there's hundreds of thousands of people walking around with immune disorders that up until the last 5 years were still generally protected because these diseases were so rare because everyone around them was protected. They weren't spreading anything. Right. But now we have in America, we have these cases of long dead or long dormant diseases in America that there haven't been more than like 5 reported cases of, and we've got people getting it that should never have gotten it because
people aren't getting vaccinated.
They're not getting vaccinated.
Yeah, well, another thing that I've heard is that things like the smallpox vaccine wears off.
Right.
You have to get like a booster on and stuff like that, or if you you stepped on a nail and get your
tetanus.
Tetanus shot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they do require, I think, certain immunizations or vaccinations require booster shots at different stages. I'm not so sure about smallpox, though. Upon entering the military, you're shot up with you're basically given everything up to and including anthrax. So, yeah, if I'm ever exposed to anthrax, I won't die, presumably, but I don't know.
You're not going to have a good time anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah, right, exactly. It doesn't offer full protection, but enough to save your life. And the point is important that Harrelson makes is that, someone with an immune disorder, like a Charlie Sheen or something, if he goes to the supermarket and is exposed to someone who hasn't been immunized and as such is sick and a carrier of a virus, Charlie Sheen could have a very bad time.
Or even die.
I mean, he's on all kinds of antiretrovirals and different kinds of medicines to keep his immune system working.
I do like the point that Harrelson got at there, though. It's if you have a kid with an immune disorder, what's this asshole over here that's not getting his kid vaccinated, even though his immune system or his or her immune system can handle it, right?
Right.
And now he's getting sick, and he's getting my immunocompromised son or daughter sick. That's some bullshit right there. That's like something that you should be able to sue for.
It's basically like their kid, punching your kid in the face.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like what it amounts to.
But it could, with death, it could kill them. And the thing is, too, I haven't seen any actual educated people that are pushing the anti-vax. It's these dumb fucking celebrities that don't. I mean,
Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, that's
Fran Drescher.
Their greatest.
Bill Maher at some point.
Their greatest
even
attribute
Bill Maher,
is a pretty face, and it's how can you sit there and honestly look at the world and be okay, so in the last 100 years we've practically eradicated X number of thousands of diseases, but suddenly, your friend Jennifer, who is a Starbucks barista, told you not to get your kid vaccinated. Right. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
These people are taking advice from... They're more apt to take advice from their stupid friend than from a freaking doctor who studied biology and medicine and, you know, cellular, everything about the human body, and, you know, a chemist that studied chemistry, and they come together, these geniuses of science, and over a period of decades create a vaccine. But, you know, your Starbucks barista is obviously smarter than
I
those
love
people.
these hokey, like, house mom remedies that they always come up with, and this can kind of segue into the whole homeopathy debate. But they have these bizarre, like, mom medicine things, like beyond chicken noodle soup. Like, I can take chicken noodle soup, that's fine. But when you start talking about sharing lollipops from chickenpox infected kids, like,
Delicious.
yeah, mothers they're doing this. Like, some kid will have chickenpox, and instead of getting the vaccine for chickenpox and sparing the kid the agony of having to go through that, they're like trading these lollipops which are infected with chickenpox with each other.
How is that not illegal?
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's
How is that not
biological
child
warfare?
abuse? How is
Yeah.
that not child abuse? Like,
It
How
is
is that
child
not
abuse.
like domestic
There-
terrorism?
there's
It's
been this-
biological warfare.
there's been this thing recently about people being like HIV positive and going around and sleeping with people and not telling them, and now they're like infecting people, and that's fucking illegal. But no, shove a chickenpox lollipop into your kid's face and you're perfectly fine.
I bet someone has made the argument that, remember, like, back in the 1800s or late 1700s, no, it was 1800s, when the American settlers were encountering the Native Americans and we gave them smallpox-infected blankets. I would be willing to bet that there's someone out there who would spin that and be like, no, we were just trying to, increase their resistance to smallpox.
Yeah, and that person would be labeled as a fucking psychopath.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like, these people that are doing this anti-vax stuff and shoving the lollipops in their kid, they're not labeled as psychopaths. They're labeled as like smart and like progressive and doing the right thing, and it's crazy.
Well, not
Now-
to take the psychopath position, but
Oh, shit. It's going down.
and I'm not about to try and like hide this behind any sort of PC. You give them the smallpox blankets, and some of them are going to survive, and those are the people that you want to reproduce.
Pretty much. Which, like, that opened up the discussion I was going to be joking about. I was like, maybe these people just deserve to die. Like, maybe these people just are weak, and the weak should die, and the strong should survive. And this is social Darwinism. This is the craziness. This is like the type of stuff that opens the door to eugenics and like the master race, Hitler, Nazism, these kinds of things. It's not the course of action that we are to take as a society. In a society that's civilized, we're supposed to be looking out for each other's interests. And doing these things like denying vaccines and sending your kid to school unvaccinated is in direct contravention of these ideals.
I'll do this and say, in the turn of the century into the 19th century, eugenics was actually really huge. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind it was driven by, like, the Rockefeller and Carnegie type people who saw being poor as a genetic disorder, like that they could actually breed that out of population. But then Hitler kind of really ruined that for everyone, because he came along and really he was a eugenics idealist. He just decided to take eugenics and make it happen as opposed to letting it happen through reproduction. He was just like, screw it, we'll just cut out the middleman and we'll just get rid of the people that we don't want around. Therefore, all that's left over is the perfect people, and they'll, their genes will go on and live happily ever after.
Well, so the perfect counter to that actually is like people with sickle cell anemia, and the fact that they have resistances to shit like, I don't know, what, yellow fever or malaria, that's the one. And it's just because of the nature of their cells being sickle cells.
Right. Yeah. Viruses.
So what you're saying is you want to take the sickle cell anemia people and then kill everyone else.
Yes. Only sickle cells need apply. I'm gonna start a sickle cell commune.
Well, more
gonna
like,
take
what if
over
we
Australia.
eradicated them, right? Like, if we ended up killing them off, what if they had some, like, mystery fucking DNA going on that we could have used, but now they're all dead, and
Well,
Right.
the
I don't
disease
think
is just
really-
going chopping on our bodies?
I don't think anyone in this discussion is really advocating for the elimination of any group of people. So,
Obviously, I am.
I mean, well,
Jokes.
I'll bring it back to what you said, Ben, about homeopathy, and I'll jump on the defense bandwagon here for a second
Sweet,
and
sweet
say this:
homeopathy.
there where there's smoke, there's fire. There is some truth to homeopathic remedies. I mean, before we had the advances in medical technology and vaccines and antibiotics and penicillin and stuff, people had to try and cure illnesses still. And
Good old
basically,
bloodletting.
all the blood. Well, I don't know about that, but but like, I mean, there are some things that work. I mean, you can go Google like home remedies for poison ivy, and there's a competing leaf you rub on or mash up or whatever, heat up, or if you got a sore throat, honey, lemons, and hot water. I mean, some stuff works, but applying that to mass health, it didn't work. Morbidity and mortality rates have drastically improved since the invention of modern medicine.
Oh, absolutely. No one's denying that.
Well, I mean, some people...
Christian scientists.
That's true. There are people denying that. Ken Ham.
But, like, it's just... I don't see how someone who's an anti-vaxxer can look at statistics for X number of hundreds of diseases that have been eradicated or controlled or have such drastic decreases in percentages of occurrence and still sit there and say that vaccines are bad.
They can't.
The
That's the
utilitarian
thing.
approach.
They can't look at that list. That's the point. Like, it's people who are ignorant of the gains that have been made by the entire field of immunological research and epidemiology and, studying vaccines and testing them. Those are the people who are ignorant of those gains, who haven't come face to face with polio thanks to Jonas Salk, or smallpox thanks to what's his name, Jenner. These are the people that deny it. They haven't been burned by it. But, I guess it's poetry in that they'll eventually reap the whirlwind of their own choices. But the problem is the repercussions don't just affect them. Like we stated at the top of the broadcast, this is something that affects the community, which means that we have a vested interest in educating these ignorant people so that they're no longer ignorant, so that they understand why it's relevant, why it's necessary, and why they should be getting their kids vaccinated.
Are there any other than autism, has there been any other claims that vaccines cause?
Dry mouth, I don't know, restless leg syndrome.
I mean,
Well, so the known side effects are headache, nausea, dizziness, sore arm, and rash, and that's like 4,600 reactions out of 1.4 million vaccinations.
but those aren't deadly.
No, they aren't. They definitely are not.
I mean, rub some dirt on it.
Leg
man.
rashes.
Like, come on.
I guess it was a pain in the ass enough to talk shit about it on some fucking Fox News. Whatever.
I got my leg rashes when I went in to get my flu vaccine.
So basically, if you're an anti-vaxxer who's so deadly scared of your child getting autism, so they won't get autism, you'd rather risk them getting smallpox, polio, the Black Plague. I don't know.
Yes,
any
I would.
Number of other things.
Yes,
Tastes
I
great,
would.
clean.
Diphtheria, rubella, malaria. I mean, shit. It's like if you have an option between getting shot in the head or like stabbed in the leg, which one do you pick?
Right.
And there's only a 0.18% chance that you will get stabbed in the leg.
Let's say you're supposed to like walk into field of fire and you're going to get shot at. Would you rather take a flak jacket, some sappy plates, Or nothing? Oh, nothing? Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
My tattoos
no.
will protect me.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a quick one, maybe the armor's not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point is that we're
But there's no
we're better off if we take the proper precautions and use the technology. This is the point. This is what just boggles my mind. These same people who reject vaccinations and the entire science of epidemiology and immunology, they reject it, and then at the same time, what do? They're using cars. They're using iPhones. They're using technology. For some reason, they don't see biotechnology as technology, but that's exactly what it is.
So I don't know. Maybe, like, I know some of it is just downright fear. It's just people are just freaking out because they don't understand it and they think they do, or they just know nothing about it at all, and so they have some reason to fear it, like evolutionary speaking. But then, I mean, there's a group of people who tried to link shaken baby syndrome to childhood vaccinations.
Really?
Which, yeah, you know where that's going, right?
It's
They were
shaking
literally
a baby.
they
versus-
literally tried to blame that shit on the vaccinations rather than just being like, I just shook the hell out of my child.
What is it like? You look at the baby and you can see the vaccination coursing through their veins, and then that makes you shake them.
Get it out, get it out.
Out, damn spot.
Out, I say. That's a terrible correlation. Correlation does not equal causation. That's what we needed to say at the top of the broadcast. Correlation does not equal causation. Just because, I don't know, every time, whatever the given example is, two things that happen to coincide at the same time doesn't mean that one comes shortly after the other one, doesn't mean that one causes the other one, right? Like you said about the third variable, there's all kinds of variables that can factor into whether or not vaccine is going to cause one side effect or another, or whatever the case may be. In the future, when we have, and we could segue into a conversation about quantified self and the future of the custom tailored medical movement or what have you. But healthcare is going to be much more personalized. Personalized healthcare, like down to your genome, whereby any drug interaction and anything that would be deleterious to your health could be seen in a laboratory environment and then kind of engineered away, such that each person is getting the medicine that is prescribed and tailored to their exact biology, their own genome, their DNA, whatever.
That's new tech, though, and it's not widely available.
Not at the moment, but in the next 15 to 20 years, we're going to see a revolution in healthcare, the likes of which we haven't seen since the advent of modern medicine with the construction of hospitals and so on. It's going to be significant.
Healthcare is going to get better.
Is the quality going to get better?
It just hasn't gotten better ever.
What, healthcare?
Yeah.
That's
totally a joke.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's never gotten better. It's always been. It's something that should be feared. I think we should go to church and pray. That's the only way to get rid of the evil Satan, the evil scourge of the smallpox. Is not to take some kind of vaccine. It's to pray to the Lord, baby Jesus Christ.
And God answered and said, "It's the gay people."
Well, here's the thing about it. Okay, we could talk about placebo effect. Do you guys know about the placebo effect? Harrelson, do you know of the placebo effect?
Yeah.
What is the placebo effect? For our listeners who may not know.
The placebo effect, in my terms, is basically the ability for you to convince yourself that something has gains. Like, the traditional placebo effect is giving athletes a sugar pill and telling them that it's going to increase or enhance their performance. And then they go out on the field and then they actually do better. They gain a confidence in this magic technology that's made them better, when really all they did was just believed that they would do better. So the placebo effect, I guess, could be attributed to, the power of your mind and confidence.
Which is pretty significant, actually, when you think about it. There are certain ailments that are known as, homeostatic, or I forget what the term is to describe them. But there are certain conditions which are psychosomatic. They're almost totally psychosomatic or exacerbated by your own mind, basically, the actual working of your brain that exacerbates these issues, which would otherwise be just kind of written off, ignored, and then taken care of by the body's own autonomous systems. And if you focus on it, you keep whatever it is, either a positive ideal held in your mind or a negative one, that can influence your health. There was a report recently where the strange science of the placebo effect is still not fully understood. It's still rather a mystery, but scientists took two different kinds of medicines. They were both placebo, though. One was a name brand placebo. One was an off-brand placebo. And the people taking both of the placebos said that the name brand placebos worked better. Like, this was the result that the patients had reported, that they felt better after taking the name brand placebo. Placebo has a lot to do with our state of mind and our overall health. And scientists, we still haven't cracked the nut on that one.
I like the name brand and off brand, because it really, that plays into what Black Catz said about fear. Fear is an issue. Fear plays a giant role, but then when you mix that in with like a respected person, like I guess some people would respect Jenny McCarthy. She's famous. She's a face that they know. She's somebody that's probably never hurt them because they've never met her. And if she sits there and you look up to somebody and they tell you something, you're more apt to believe something coming from someone you trust. But the other side of that is you're taking this placebo and it's name brand, so you believe in this brand, but you don't believe in the people that made it, I guess. I don't know how you can get to that conclusion.
Yeah, how do you parse that, right?
Well, just to speak on the power of the mind for a second, the psychosomatic effects can even lead to things like blindness. Like, there are people who are legally blind, they cannot see, but it's only due to the fact that their mind isn't letting them do it. So
yeah, I read that somewhere recently.
Yeah, so that can really have a huge effect. And with regard to name brand versus generic, I take generics all the time because it's just really what's in the bottle, right? Like,
right.
Advil is ibuprofen, so just because they say, "Oh yeah, take Advil, it'll work," they actually sugarcoat those pills, by the way.
Right.
So you could just take regular ibuprofen, pay half the price, and still have the same effect, really. It's the same chemical.
Have you ever heard of placebo surgery?
I have not, but that sounds pretty interesting. What's all that about?
There were a group of scientists in Finland who took 146 patients between the ages of something like 35 and 65. And all of the patients had reported some kind of persistent pain in their legs. And none of them had been responding to conventional treatment. And after some tests, they did MRI, presumably X-ray or something. It showed evidence that there was a tear in their, in whatever tendon was in their leg there. The researchers did this randomized orthopedic surgery or placebo surgery, stating that, it's kind of unethical because you're cutting someone open with the intent, according to the patient, with the intent of repairing the muscle tear, but in fact you're doing nothing. Anyway, they came out of the procedure feeling much better. Presumably, I guess it wasn't that they found a tear from the MRI. There was no tear, but the participants kept complaining that there was something wrong. So then they just did a mock surgery, basically, and then they were fine.
I don't know if that's ethically okay. I mean,
Yeah, that's
people in the healthcare industry, like myself, we have a duty to warn. We must provide informed consent, and so by kind of saying, "Oh yeah, there is a problem," and then we do a surgery, even though there wasn't a problem, you didn't really get informed consent, and so that's like the doctor's form of rape.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's not good. That's a felony, I think.
Rape MP.
Yes.
Have you guys heard of the nocebo effect?
No, I have not.
Harrelson, have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
The nocebo effect is this is from the wiki, the adverse reaction experienced by a patient who receives such a therapy. Conversely, a placebo is an inert substance or form of therapy that creates a beneficial response in the patient. The phenomenon by which a placebo creates a beneficial response is called the placebo effect. The nocebo is the opposite of that, right? So you have in side effects, for example, for a drug, an adverse side effect, adverse reaction would constitute a nocebo, which is Latin for I shall harm.
Wow. Well, a direct example I could think of right away is where they did that surgery and say they sewed it all back up, but they left like a glove in there or some bacteria or some shit like that, and they got infected.
God. Yeah. Speaking of, go ahead, Harrelson. You have something?
Oh no, that's sweet sepsis.
Speaking of the nocebo, the placebo, sweet sepsis, leaving gloves inside wounds and gauze and even in some cases tools, like metal surgical tools. There was, and we talked about MRSA, right? So MRSA, Black Catz, do you encounter MRSA regularly? Have you come in contact with this? Like, to what degree and what frequency?
The only degree that you would have contact with it usually is in hospitals. Those are generally breeding grounds for some of the more dangerous viruses.
Right. MRSA has been found, it stands for what? The methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus bacteria.
Yes.
And Coleman, you're familiar with this. I don't know when you were going through boot camp, but when I was, like, every other word out of the DI's mouth when it came time for hygiene inspection or we were going to take hygiene, we were going to clean ourselves, was MRSA this, MRSA that. Like, everything was MRSA.
Oh, it wasn't MRSA. There was like a special. Did they say MRSA for you?
They said,
I know what you're talking about.
There
but
was
in
another
mine,
one
it was
that they
called,
said.
Oh my God, what was it? I'll think of it here in a second. But yeah, it was basically MRSA. It's like a skin. It would manifest on your skin as like. It kind of was like your skin eating itself from the inside.
Right, exactly.
From basically
an infection.
Your dirty self, always sweating, and then
your dirty, nasty body.
Dirty recruit body.
Right. So this had been kind of like public enemy number one as far as bacteriologists or microbiologists are concerned, insofar as human health was concerned, because there's no antibiotic that could defeat it, right? Like if you got MRSA and you didn't get that checked out right away, you're fucked. And in order to treat MRSA, what they have to do is they have to cut out the infected area and stuff it with gauze, keep it dry, and then pray that it doesn't spread. Like, it is a nasty little beastie. And until recently, just recently actually, there was 1,000-year-old onion and garlic remedy that I think I talked about at the top of the broadcast. I wonder if that was on take 1 or take 2 though. But basically it consists of onion, garlic, wine, and part of a cow's stomach, and it's shown to wipe out 90% of antibiotic-resistant Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, otherwise known as MRSA.
It's the wine. The French know what they're doing.
Right, yeah, maybe that's the thing. Or I wonder about MRSA rates in Russia and in Poland with all the vodka. They drink a lot of the vodka over there.
That basically kills everything, right? It's nature's remedy.
Yes, nature's remedy. Especially in a Molotov cocktail. It kills a lot of things that way, too.
Burns it out.
Burns it out. It's good to flush it
Well,
out.
and it's not just that. Like, I mean, sometimes they have nuclear options where they just give you all of the antibiotics or the really powerful ones like class 3 or 4 antibiotics. But
The broad spectrum shit.
well, the stuff that causes arthritis and other shit like that. Well, so as a side note to that, those aren't the only things that are available anymore. Some of the experimental shit that's been really cool lately is stuff that like literally looks for the DNA traces of infection, like from viruses or whatever,
Right.
and then it literally goes to the cells that are infested with these viri, and it causes them to go through a thing called apoptosis, where they literally just explode. And because they have exploded before the cells inside have reached maturation, they don't get this special enzyme that they would from the cell, the host cell, and so they can't survive in the body hidden. And so all of your immune system is just like, hey, that's a virus. We're taking it down.
Right. Are you talking about the Draco treatment? What does that stand for?
I don't remember exactly what it stands for. I just know generally how it works.
So basically it's looking for DNA traces, and then it seeks out those exact cells that fit the MO or whatever, the description, and kills them. And this is a drug or a treatment that can be customized to attack any virus, given the information. I presume that you have to give it the signature that it's looking for to kill.
Yeah.
Before you inject it.
Essentially, you use some of the DNA from it, and so it stands for double-stranded RNA activated caspase oligomerizer. Yeah, that's a tough one for me. But that's just for viruses and whatnot. There are also different treatments for bacteria that have recently been introduced because of the wearing thin of class 3 and 4 antibiotics and the fact that they aren't working quite as well.
We talk a lot about infectious diseases, viruses, bacteria, prions, so on and so forth. But one thing that we don't really often talk about is like memes, like mimetic epidemiology and immunization to certain, counterproductive or deleterious memes is something that should be explored as well, I think. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Memes as viruses?
Oh, I'm jumping in, by the way.
Oh, hey, Zanish. Welcome to the program, Zanish. Co-host Coleman, this is Zanish. Zanish, this is Coleman.
Hey, how's it going?
What do you think about mimetic epidemiology, Zanish?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I didn't quite catch.
So you know how like a meme is like a unit of information that can propagate through a system using social media as a substrate or other people as carriers?
Right.
What do you think about kind of vaccinating against what we might consider to be aggressive, kind of deleterious memes like the Islamic State or, I don't know, Donald Trump or...
people who don't like vaccines?
Or people who don't like vaccines.
Well, I would say that I don't know how you immunize against something like that other than skeptical education.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, basically critical thinking, because
how do you teach that?
Well, you know, philosophy 101, really.
Read a book.
Yeah. But that being said, though, I think that the real problem with memes, as kind of a plague, is that they're stand-ins for argumentation, and they're completely reductive and only lead to sanctimonious Facebook liking.
But isn't that the language of the day? That's kind of the lingua franca now. We communicate in Instagram posts and tweets. Like, is that not the future of information propagation? If not, I don't know what is.
Feels regressive.
It feels regressive. It's either regressive or it's just more elegant in that it's compressed. Because here,
the compression is where you lose the information. You don't gain any information by compressing anything.
But
the mimetic, the memes, they don't solve anything. They take. I mean, if you look at I saw this Bernie Sanders meme. One of my conservative people posted on Facebook today, and the thing was, I saw someone on campus with a Bernie 2016 sticker. Obviously, they're not an economics professor.
Right. So that's subtracted.
It's taking this whole argument and it's smushing it down into one sentence, and that sentence is to make a point, but the point has no backing, has no information.
Right.
People see that and they make this huge conclusion in their head off of one sentence.
But the meme war goes both ways. The meme war goes both ways because you could have people that could design memes that, lambast Trump for being a racist, Hitlerian idiot,
Yeah, but that's lowering yourself to their level of, if they're trying to smash you with one sentence, how can you hit them back with one sentence? You're not getting anywhere.
That is simply people trying to take something that they don't understand and use it. So they're like, okay, there's these memes, they're hilarious, and they are able to spread information in a small sort of packet using a picture that people think is accurate. And that is the improper use of a meme. Memes are for the lulz, and that's what I'm in them for. I mean, clearly, these other people are doing it wrong. They're simply taking something that could have been funny, and they are making it very unfunny. And
give me some sweet,
a way that spreads everywhere. It's just bad. It's terrible. I hate it.
That's where you have to use the meme that's like, you're doing it wrong. Oh, I'm going to fuck it up. You're doing it wrong and I hate you. Or the Futurama one.
Just doing it wrong.
You're doing
the
it wrong.
Futurama one, that's the Fry one where he's looking and he's like, can't tell if...
or
discussion or
no, there's another one. It's like Zoidberg and I think it's Bender when they're like in a movie theater or something, and it's basically like I can't even now. I'm like,
you're of the. Wait a minute. I want to go back.
You're doing it wrong, and I hate you for it.
I want to go back to your point, Harrelson, because you stepped out and you said that these memes, there's no way to design a meme that is edifying. Like, is there no way to compress, like, for example, E = MC squared? That's a meme. There's all kinds of information in that. You have to unpack it, but it is succinct, it's to the point, and it fits in an Instagram post.
You said it. You have to unpack it. To have a meme that's making a point like that, the assumption is that you're going to go and research it, to understand it, you're not going to just trust it right off the bat when it's something you don't know anything about. And what I was getting at with, I'm with Black Catz, memes are for the lulz, but what people use them for is to take this giant umbrella of information, compact it down into a one-sentence slam about something they disagree with, and throw it up on their wall or their whatever, and be like, Bernie doesn't know economics, therefore he's a bad presidential candidate, therefore vote for Trump, therefore kick the Mexicans out, therefore Jesus, therefore M16, therefore kill the Muslims. It's it's
snowball of hate and destruction.
Snowball of racist.
Of racism. Snowball of racism. One thing we didn't discuss, which I kind of wanted to touch on, was the reluctance that some people feel towards science, even in the case of a Monsanto or genetically modified food more generally. I have friends who are in agriculture, in horticulture, at the industrial level, working in universities, professional academics, who want nothing except to improve the quality and the yields of our food. And I have other friends who are they harbor these wholly irrational beliefs that just because it's genetically modified now means that it somehow causes autism, causes cancer, causes this, causes that.
GMO is the future of humanity. GMO is how we're going to feed a 7 billion plus population world.
Right.
But
they reject that notion outright, and they say that just because it's Monsanto or just because it's this or that, this is poison that you're selling.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head, though. It's more of an anti-corporate capitalist mentality than it is an anti-science one. And, did you know that Bill Maher is an anti-vaxxer?
Right, yeah, we brought him up earlier in the conversation.
And he's like ideologically opposed to big pharma, and like when he's pushed on it, he kind of gets into that as big.
He's anti-corporate. He's an anti-corporatist. He's not necessarily anti-scientific.
But he drops the ball on the science when it comes to vaccines.
Well, okay,
absolutely.
So the issue there is it's not really so much of a mentality as our basic instinct. We have fight or flight reflexes that not only do we apply to predators, but we also apply to data itself. When we see an incoming idea that is opposed to what we believe in any sort of way, we will actually come up with justifications and rationalize it after the fact. Mm-hmm. And the more you try and press a person like that on the issue, the more they're going to fight back. It's sort of like a Christian hillbilly sort of effect.
Exactly
where
what
you get him in the room and people start fighting him, and he just keeps fighting back harder and harder. And there's no convincing them, but people still try and do it.
So
you kind of have to let him come to the belief.
Bias.
Well, I think there's another element going on here, though, and that's that. People think that humans are unnatural. They make a nature or a natural
right, yeah,
distinction.
Artificial natural distinction,
right.
Which is
and they're like,
bullshit.
well, because people kill each other in war and treat each other badly in the office, everything that humans do is less good than nature.
Right.
And it's interesting that atheists could hold a position like that. Remember, you and I had that conversation about how there's a lot of new atheists who have incongruent beliefs, and one
they
of
have
them.
What beliefs? Inking ruin?
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't want to get into that. Like, I'll just restate it rather than waste time because we don't have too much left, right? I'll just basically say that their beliefs don't jive with each other, and they have a lot of contradictions in their belief systems. Like, and what I mean here is that basically they act like somehow they're rah pro reason, but yet they somehow act like nature, who by definition they believe is an unintelligible accident, is more competent to affect changes in the world than the human mind, which is guided by reason. And it's just, I don't know, the whole thing is weird to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it is guided by reason, but we are creatures of emotion, and it definitely affects us. This is according to an article in Mother Jones, but it was basically some science that was done rehashed by Leon Festinger. He basically kind of came up with the idea of why we have issues with religion, right? Or why religion has issues with science. And it has to do very much with our emotional centers. We react to it, and it is due to fight or flight, but then we try and rationalize it after the fact, and that's why you get things like Christian Science.
This is like
Well,
I keep invoking Nassim Nicholas Taleb in almost every podcast that I've been doing recently. But that's what he says, that the human brain does that in response to any black swan event. Anything that's unpredictable, it after the event horizon of it happening occurs, we retroactively say, oh, we saw that coming the entire time.
Well, that's because we want to be able to predict it in the future so that we don't get caught off guard again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you know, a self-assured rationalization. But I don't know. I think that if you believe that things evolve out of necessity, then you have to believe that emotion is not a counter survival thing that goes on in our brain, right? It's like, so fear, for example, keeps you from walking out in front of cars, or you know, and even anger is a strategy for controlling other people around you by either displaying that you're willing to take things to a level that they're not, and so therefore they have to, you know, yield to your way, or they're going to have to deal with this acting out and the discomfort of that, or you know what I mean?
Right. It's
Well,
all
yeah.
serving evolutionary ends. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to like squash on the emotion thing. It is obviously something that does help us in our survival. That's the whole point. But at the same time, you can use people's emotions against them. Fear is an excellent example. I mean, one of the things we were talking about earlier was how fear can lead to things like mass hysteria regarding vaccines, and that's why we have the anti-vaccination movement. And so, I mean, while it is a survival thing, it is a heuristic, and heuristics can be hacked.
I mean, but you can say the same thing about rational thought. Like, I can just weave a web of words that if it doesn't bump into an emotional based value at some point, I'm going to be able to make some argument that you're defenseless against without that emotional value, you know, as the bulwark against whatever sophistry that I'm trying to put out there.
Exactly. Yeah,
And what happens in that case is kind of what Black Catz was saying. When you confront somebody with something they can't defend against, they basically just put up a wall in their head, say you're wrong, and that's the end of it for them. Like, there's some things you just can't convince people. They have a cognitive bias. You're not going to change their mind no matter how much you prove them wrong. They're just going to keep telling themselves, they're really just telling themselves you're wrong over and over again. Excuse me. There was a KGB defector back in the 70s. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but he alluded to this even 40 years ago, and he said the same thing. He's like, people will believe what they want to believe no matter what you said in front of them, no matter how much you prove them wrong. If they're dead set on it, they're literally dead set on it. They'll take it to the grave. And people apply this to everything. The anti-vaxxers think this way. A Republican thinks that way. A Democrat thinks that way. I mean, they're in every aspect of life. There are just people out there that they connect things so strongly with their emotions and with their identity. You're not changing their mind, and that's a problem.
That's an issue of fact versus mere opinion. I mean, it's a matter of trying to get someone to see the truth over their own beliefs. It's not easy.
No.
Well, I mean, but the problem is that the main things that face society today are value judgments and not fact judgments. Like, you know, the main question, the Enlightenment was, is the best world behind us or is it ahead of us? Is technology a good or a bad thing? And, well, that depends on your perspective and what you want out of the world. Because, like, some people romanticize, you know, like ancient Greece or some simpler lifetime, and they think that we've lost something, that the world is in a state of entropy, that the world's just, you know, systemically going to collapse on itself, socially and morally.
Well,
Like
people that think that way should seriously hone up on their hunting skills, because technology is the only way they're living their life right now. I mean, in the world, and not two. It's the collection of being able to grow food for a populace that 99% of it doesn't grow it. It's 1% supporting the other 99.
You have to remember, though, that most people that think that way think that 99% of the people who live in the world are throwaways.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Maybe. I mean, like what you were getting at with the value versus fact thing. That's fact versus mere opinion. That's like, oh, well, I like chocolate ice cream. You like vanilla. What are we going to do? Argue about it? Say you're wrong? That's just a fucking opinion. But then there's people who try and take
your
fact.
opinion, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the problem is just when it comes to things like public policy, like there's no fact argument.
Yeah.
About
we don't have
thinking
an example.
abortion is infanticide, for instance.
Well, there are, I mean, arguments for or against it, but they are sort of opinion. I mean, you can kind of take either side on it because there's a rational argument for either side.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that when life begins is an arbitrary distinction.
Well, that's like the age of consent. That's an arbitrary distinction.
Right.
We're spiraling into moral relativism here. I think that there are certain things which are accepted. It depends on like what you consider is like the metric for establishing a firm position. Either you're a relativist, in which case nothing's up, nothing's down, or you have certain things that you have an ascribed up and ascribed down, and eventually I think it all decays into relativism because you get to the point where at the smallest resolution that you look at it, the smaller the resolution that you observe the phenomena or interact or are affected by it, the more gray it is. There isn't really this distinction between black and white. Is maybe the true nature of reality is relativistic, in which case, there is no good, there is no evil, it's just a sliding scale. But when I see something like the Paris terrorist attacks, people that had nothing to do with it get raked by AK-47 fire, I have to wonder, isn't that evil?
Let me ask you a question.
What is evil?
No, not even that. Does evil exist in the universe without moral agents or beings of consciousness, self-aware entities? Well, then obviously it has to be subjective. Because
that's a good point. It's subjective in that as long as we are subjects of the universe we are in here,
maybe
we are observing it. But
maybe it's a red herring though. The objective subjective argument has been beat to death. What matters is the intersubjective, right? What we agree as a community is right, and what we agree as a community is wrong. I'd be willing to bet that, like, if I were to ask us four what your opinion was, if we were walking down the street and there was a little girl with her mother, and I pointed over and I said, what do you guys think? This little girl and her mother should not be beaten, raped, and forced into slavery. I'm pretty sure all four of you would agree that what I just said was true. We're establishing morals, like, in every interaction. I'm not saying it has to be like that, but these micro interactions that we have with each other, we are establishing a fixed,
Yeah, but that's all enculturated. Like, what if...
Right. Well,
what if culture...
Name one person that lives outside of culture. You can't find one.
Well, there's feral children, but...
Okay, well...
they don't
people who are in prisons that are in maximum security.
Yeah, prison...
Isn't there a culture in prison? There's a prison of culture.
But then there's prison culture.
Right.
Well, they're spending 23 hours a day in a cell and 1 day in the yard alone. Their only culture is, I'm going to kick some ass while the guards are trying to come in because I'm bored.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying by it revolves around, a cultural norm or societal norm. I mean, there's a tribe in Africa that still practices a passing into manhood is to basically blow the older...
That's in New Guinea. Papua New Guinea.
New Guinea.
The seaman
New
warriors.
Guinea. Yes, the young boys, to pass into manhood, they have to go and suck off one of the older men and receive his semen. That gives the young boy the strength to advance into manhood, and that's completely normal there, and no one thinks that's weird. But if I did that, I'd go to fucking jail real quick.
Yeah.
Now that's culture.
Well, I mean,
there's a reason why the Papua New Guineans haven't launched space shuttles or developed the internet, though.
Yeah, because they're blowing loads in boys' mouths.
I'm waiting for someone to flip that argument on me.
Yeah, let's talk about all the Republican leadership in the United States who probably involved in pedophilia.
Right. Lindsey Graham.
I mean, just for one thing, but
the gay thing for another. Thou doth protest too much.
Yeah, like Ted Cruz is so outspoken against gay and lesbian rights. It's like, bro, it's blatantly obvious. And someone like Lindsey Graham, it's blatantly obvious that you like to get, a dick every once in a while. Like, let's be honest. Like, you're fooling no one. Like,
just
there's
every
no
5
need for
minutes.
Dick dependent.
But I don't know. Like, going back though, I think that you can't even. I don't think you can make so. All right, even if you want to make a biological argument for morality, the conditions that we involved in were arbitrary too. And if you change just a couple of those, then all of a sudden you end up with humans with a different emotional makeup, and maybe it's a harder world, and maybe rape is more acceptable.
Because survival.
Right.
Or some other shit.
You can use that to justify any argument, though, because
survival is survival. Mere survival is not enough. You got to be worthy of it. Like, if we just survived, we would be raping each other, fucking killing each other.
Well, yeah, but that's
the whole point
that's
of
not
society is that we don't
reality.
have to survive on our own.
Yeah.
You can't just say if reality was completely different, then everything would be different.
But the problem is that it's going to be different in the future.
Well, yeah,
and it's been different in the past.
How is it going to be different? Like, how much different? To the point where it's okay to rape kids? I don't think so.
Well, how do you know that?
Because I look at the inexorable the progress that we've made throughout time, and I only see us becoming more sensitive and more lawful. Like, I subscribe to Pinker's view that we are becoming less violent and more civilized over time.
No, I don't agree with that.
Hold on, though. That's in a period of interglacial warmness that is grossly uncharacteristic of the normal state of Earth. Like, we're really in a honeymoon period with our environment in terms of when our species came into being. And let me tell you, did you watch what happened during Hurricane Katrina? Could you imagine if a fucking super volcano went off? Everything that you just said would be out the window in 5 seconds.
Yellowstone.
Yeah, that's predicated upon a potential natural disaster.
But it's going to happen.
You're saying it's going to happen, but you don't know that it's going to happen.
Okay.
You don't have. Are you Nostradamus?
No.
Jesus
Let's get
Christ.
scientific with it. Let's get scientific. Okay, so geology, right? It's the study of rocks that you eat with your hand. Anyway, so don't eat rocks. But Yellowstone has been known to blow up before. We have seen where the ash plume lies in between the layers of soil and sandstone and shit like that. And it was only getting worse and worse according to the carbon dating and whatnot. So the next one, if everything goes according to what it's been doing, according to the pattern so far, it's going to be really bad. It's going to cover the entire United States in a shitload of ash, fucking volcanic soot and other bullshit. And it's probably going to black out the sun for a while. And think about how many nations rely on us for food.
I mean, it's going to be something. Like, we have these gigantic ice ages that are cyclical. We have these super volcanoes that are cyclical. We have asteroids. We have asteroids that hit the Earth I mean, just 80,000 years ago, it wiped out like 99.9999% of humanity. And we're talking about humanity surviving over the long run. I mean, and eventually the Earth is going to change because the sun's going to expand into, a super red giant, and the oceans are going to boil.
Well, then we need to get the fuck off the planet. I mean, we could
I
talk
agree
about
with you
resolving
there.
those issues from an engineering perspective, or just relent and throw in the towel, which it sounds like you have.
But that's not what I'm talking about at all, though. I'm bringing up those things because I'm saying that it's not a matter of opinion that this really sweet period that we've evolved in isn't going to last, and that eventually we don't know real scarcity in human history, at least not since civilization began.
Industry, actually.
Civilization is what defines us, and how we treat each other is a measure of, how well informed we are and how intelligent we are as a species. Coleman and I spent 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. It was one of the most Spartan-esque environments that you could think of. Food was scarce. I mean, at least in boot camp for 13 weeks. And even in the midst of all of that stress and all of that pressure, there is a community, there is camaraderie, there is civilization, and there isn't this animals tearing themselves apart that you describe. We need to stick together in the event of something like that, and I think an event like that would only serve us, would only increase our compassion towards one another, and would help to eliminate a lot of the BS that goes along with it. It's pretty convenient for you. Go ahead.
I gotta jump in and slightly agree/disagree with you and kind of join their team on this one.
Suck my dick.
I mean, I don't know if I'd be raping people if Yellowstone exploded, but you know what? If it came down to me, or me and my kin against some random, that random's fucking going down every day of the week.
Right, but what predicates that encounter? Like what?
It's isolationist society. We have an isolationist society. We rely on independence. We're not a communal society, and so I think that's more likely to happen in a
We are a
nation like the
communal
United
society,
States.
though. None
We
of
are
you
to
would
an
be
extent.
alive without
Okay.
the community.
But Peterson, if the zombie apocalypse happened tomorrow, are you gonna allow every fat chick to join your fucking party of survivalists?
Yes, because
Or food.
I'm a fucking chubby chaser.
Well, I mean, I might let them join too, but I'm going to let them join for the fact of when the zombies attack the camp, they're going to be slow, and the zombies are going to catch them and eat them, and I'm going to get the fuck away.
Oh, that's smart.
I don't think
Smart
that's an
tactic.
honest answer. I think you're just waiting for the starvation to make them thin.
Ah, yeah, so you can fuck them and rape them. That's why.
Okay, yeah, you're
Well,
right.
we're making
I
way
shouldn't
too much light of rape.
What I'm
Eat
gonna
them and
do is
rape
I'm
them and then
gonna keep the fat men around to get eaten by the zombies and hope that the chicks skinny up and get hot so we can repopulate.
There you go.
You caught me. You caught the tater.
Anyway,
I mean, fat
Go
chicks
ahead,
and
go
food,
ahead.
zombie apocalypse.
yeah. This
Okay, Terminus. Okay, Terminus.
Hey man, I'll eat a fat chick like nobody's business. Okay.
See, I remembered a lesson that I forgot, and it's not to use rape as a moral example because it's problematic because of how extreme it is. But
what other example would you use? I think it's good because it is so extreme.
food.
Well, okay, what about a more mild example like stealing food?
Yeah, right. It might be better.
Or killing someone so that you can survive another day because you have food in your belly.
Fuck them.
You see where this is going, right? Like it just keeps getting worse and worse depending on how the conditions are. Like you could just be stealing food because you think you can get away with it and you're not willing to kill. But after a certain point, everyone is.
Well,
Let me
after a
ask-
certain point, you're not just walking up and taking the food. Now the food is controlled by another human being. You're starving. They've got food. They're not going to just give you the food. So now you're contemplating murder.
What should be the course of action towards the anti-vaccine population? If we just kind of zoom out for a minute. We started this conversation talking about vaccinations. These anti-vax people are endangering the community. Are they doing this as a means by which to kind of thin the herd because they've already developed a stronger resilience? Is it
No,
biological warfare?
They're scared. They're scared and they're uneducated. Our obligation and duty is to educate, to take away the fear for our own survival, so that their sick asses don't infect us.
2 minutes ago, you were just saying that our obligation was to murder the people that were trying to come for ours in a zombie apocalypse scenario. I'm saying if the zombie apocalypse were now,
but we're not in that scenario.
yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
shouldn't
agree
we?
with Harrelson,
If we
but
were,
with a caveat, right? So, one more time. What was the point?
the point is that we should be murdering the anti-vax people.
Well, I don't know about all that. So you said we need to educate them. The problem with that, it goes.
I love
back
how
to the,
everyone turns their argument. This is exactly what I just said. Is exactly what you guys were arguing for less than 2 minutes ago, and
But
now
the
you're
problem
taking
is
the
we
lovey-dovey.
got-
Whoa, wait, hold on a second.
Extreme
I was having the laughs
an extreme philosophical thing. Now you wanted to bring it back to reality where we actually live in today, so that's what we've done.
with zombies.
Obviously, Yellowstone's still fine for the moment. There's no zombies walking around. We're good. So now we have to educate these dumb fucks.
Okay.
Well, and I agree with that, but the only thing that might be a problem with that is you kind of have to lead them to it. You can't shove it in their face. You can't just be like, hey,
Like a big
wake up,
old dick.
motherfucker. There is a whole bunch of vaccines that will help you, and you're going to be healthy. They already have the preconception in their head that it's going to fucking kill them or give their kids autism.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta lead them to it. It's like getting rid of racism. You introduce.
Breed it out.
Well, yeah, sort of, but you society it out. You get
Yeah.
people into the schools, you get people into the society that are those who are considered less like black folk back in the civil rights movement. And by doing that, you sort of get the communities together and people are able to see one another, and they no longer have the fears that they had. Racism is born of fear.
See, the
You
problem
get people
is,
to see because all you got to do is get them to see it. It's a matter of exposure. Once they know something about it, it's like, oh, there's that black family. They're cool. They're okay. But then it's another, and then it's another, and then it's another, and
So what you're
eventually
saying
racism
is-
goes away.
We have to lead the sheep to the slaughter, except we're not leading them to the slaughter. We're leading them to salvation through Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Well, of
Praise
course, I
the
mean-
Lord Jesus Christ.
I don't think it works like that, though. I mean, when I look at the internet and the stuff that gets said on here, people are just fake, not racist in public.
So, what do you suggest? That we should fucking grab up all the anti-vax people and then subject them to the Clockwork Orange forceps in the eyes, like forcefully reprogram them, Zanish? What's your
No.
alternative?
There isn't one. They have to fucking develop a sense of self-esteem. That's the problem, is that they're getting their self-worth from being a mouthpiece against something.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But aren't we doing the same thing by being a mouthpiece against the anti-vaccine people?
Yeah,
I'm
but we're
not
right.
anti-vaccine people. I never stated that as my position. They're free to say whatever they want. I just don't agree with them.
Well, I
Meanwhile, they're
also don't
endangering.
agree with them, and I know that they're wrong, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, is that there's billions of wrong ideas out there. Good luck with, you know what I mean? It's like, I think that people are either prone to latching on to bad ideas or not, and that trying to stamp out the source of the bad idea isn't going to stop.
So
It's
there
like
you
the
go.
idea that stopping racist language makes people less racist somehow. I think
Right.
it's sort of the same thing.
You use your mimetic epidemiology. You use memes as a way of educating people. Boom.
Bam. I thought memes were only for the lulz, Black Cats.
I know,
Well, I
right?
mean, memes
He's a
can be
traitor.
educational. I mean, I don't want to even go to that sort of area of the internet right now because no.
Yes.
Yeah, deep web. Oh, wait. What were we talking about?
Deep.
Hashtag
web.
deep.
Yeah, deep web.
Skin deep.
Deep
Jeb
up
Bush
in your...
probably operates a deep web child pornography site.
Balls deep
Uh,
web.
There's oh well, that's another can of worms to get into. It's like the assertion was made earlier in the broadcast that Republicans are involved in child rape.
That was me.
What
I mean, of course they are.
do you have
No.
some sources? Like what specifically have you heard, and who have you heard it about?
Well, the thing is that I don't. Well, I mean, there's the Catholic priest thing, but they're not really Republicans. Generally, Catholics are usually.
Yeah, those aren't Republicans.
No.
You said
Well,
specifically the GOP. I'm kind of wondering who these individuals are.
I was being completely facetious, but I have a question. So you say that you see that society trending towards the better, right? Morally. Then why does it seem like corporations are headed in the opposite direction?
Bottom line.
Which corporations?
Oh, I would just say, I don't know, like Google, for instance, selling out Chinese dissidents to the government or to the Chinese government for money.
I think Yahoo did
for
that.
Congress. Oh no, Google got hauled before Congress for doing that.
Wow, well done, Google. I mean, the Chinese government did sort of hack them really hard in their emails, and
I mean, this was
payback's a bitch.
They did it.
I don't see how you can step back, look at the progress that humankind has made over the past 20 to 100 years and state honestly that you think it's getting worse.
Well, it's not what I said though. I said, well, it seems to be getting better in some areas and worse in others.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, well, look at this dichotomy of how in one direction we have social consciousness arising, whereas corporate responsibility, like with the, look at what happened in 2008.
It's like Aurobindo said. It was quoted by Zach Stein from episode 26. He says it's a race between heaven and hell right now. And
well, that
hopefully
makes
heaven
sense.
wins.
Well, it's a highway to hell, so you know.
Well, remember
Stairway
our
to heaven.
first conversation that we had where I was talking about how our entire social system is based on filling like that hole in the soul with external stuff. And that's what all this stuff is. It's all the same thing, like manifesting in different ways, It's like you have people who just endlessly make money to no end.
Right.
You have people who become mouthpieces for bad ideas, people who try to force their views on other people because it makes them feel better or righteous or like they're doing something better with the world. Which is, we have to talk about a lot about the role of religious values and good governance and what room is there for religious people, because you can't just, say, well, since we have a separation of church and state, your values can't be reflected because then you're, that's not equality anymore. And so there's like all these crazy kind of things that are coming from a similar place. And you asked, how do we fix this stuff? And I think that the answer is you have to have a primary education in identity and self-worth. And because it's a lack of people's ability to create internal boundaries and distinctions that I think makes them make poor ones externally when they start going out into the world.
There's a lot to that. A lot of that education happens in the home. Well, unfortunately, I think we're starting to breed that out of each other. You have a lot of single-parent homes and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but even that, though, like, parents don't know. You know what I mean? They don't have... There's no parenting manual that's handed to you, and everybody just swings it based on
that's what I'm saying, though. It's like it's unspoken,
days,
unwritten. This is an education that you got as a child that you didn't even realize you got, and your parents didn't even realize they were giving.
Right.
But if you were raised correctly, I use that really loosely, that expression. But if you were raised correctly, you have it, Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is, though, is that parents, when they're learning these lessons, are going through the same thing their child is because they didn't have it either. So they have their own screwed up filters and they're interpreting things along those bad lines. And I think that
you just hope that it's being refined with every generation. You hope that it's being refined.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It seems to be so subjectively pocketed in each and every individual household that maybe we should start looking at a sense of self and identity as a technology.
Can we go back to your point about vaccinated or anti-vax people? How you stated, well, I'm not against them. I think they should be able to believe whatever they want to believe.
That's true.
But if their beliefs are actually threatening the overall health of the majority, the greater population, isn't there an onus on you as the educated one to do something about it?
See, the problem is that I'm not responsible for other people's values, right?
But
I
their
can't
values
put myself in that
their values could mean the difference between your child living and dying.
Right. But then again, how about people who choose to, I don't know, have swimming pools without fences around them, and how many kids a year that kills? I bet it's way more than kids that don't get vaccinated because of Jenny McCarthy.
I mean,
It is Jenny McCarthy, isn't it? I don't want to say the wrong person. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
she's,
Jenny McCarthy's anti-vax.
she's like the biggest mouthpiece for that, isn't she?
But I don't understand, even if that were the case, you would still say something to the effect of maybe they should put a fence around their pool, or maybe they should have their kids vaccinated. I don't understand why you take this kind of hands-off approach to that. It seems like if we're on a spaceship and there's someone on the spaceship and they're deathly ill and they're just like walking around the spaceship, why you wouldn't be like, maybe we should quarantine this guy so we all don't get sick? Like, why you would reject that?
Well, I mean, the internet taught me a valuable lesson in arguing with conspiracy theorists in general.
I love that. That's a great pastime of mine.
Let me tell you, it gets you nowhere. Because one, you're going to have that, I don't want to talk about specific people, but the Christian gentleman that we used to know from Stickham.
Von Helton?
No.
Christian Hillbilly?
Yeah.
AAL? You get the same issues with AAL, too, though.
Well,
Only
yeah,
it's like
I mean,
the atheist flavor.
Yeah, he's a pretty big homophobe, AAL.
Yeah, huge.
I remember.
And misogynist.
Which is interesting, again, for an atheist, because it's like he has to make the unnatural argument, right?
Yeah.
If it's not a religious, God says no, it has to be an unnatural one. But how do you hold that natural unnatural distinction as such a hardcore atheist? No less, he's not like, I'm not sure there's no God. There's probably no God. He's like, there's no way in this fucking world or the next that there's a God any way possible. He's like that hard into it.
Yeah, he's like complete. It's like it's the Christian extremist or religious extremist version of atheism, and it does service to no one. It serves nothing. It's just another entrenched opinion.
well, I mean, it serves his ego. He's just a militant atheist.
Right.
Well, there you go, though. It's back to the self-esteem and identity.
But like, explain to
Every
me
time.
why, if we're on the spaceship and there's someone that's really sick, why you would just be like, well, I'm not gonna tell him what to do. Like, that's just he can do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
I would put him in the airlock, and if he wants to get out and wander about the ship, it's time for the button to go.
Yeah.
Because all you can do is make the good argument publicly.
Well, so
And
then
let
you
the
can.
argument
That's
went on
then you're
its
doing
own.
something. You're making the good argument publicly. You said
Right, but I don't
prior
have
that
to
you
engage
wouldn't.
Jenny McCarthy to make that argument.
I'm sorry.
I don't have
Yeah,
to
that's true.
engage Jenny McCarthy to make that argument publicly. I just state my position, and then peace out. I state the scientific facts,
Right.
my interpretation,
Right.
and then I have to leave it to someone else to decide if Jenny McCarthy's right or if I'm right, because they're gonna do that in the end anyway.
Okay, but
Well-
you're not saying that you wouldn't take action. That's what I wanted to make clear. Is that
Okay.
you
Right,
would
but
make
I
it.
don't think that you can get a jailer or deport her, or you know what I mean. If you start doing that, there won't be anybody left.
Well, yeah, that's usually the thing that made Stickham Rooms a bummer, but
I think we should sneak up on her and vaccinate her ass.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You said
Boom.
jail Jenny McCarthy. I'm thinking like
You know, it'd be
whips and
funny.
chains and dungeons.
She's
and
probably
manacles.
already got the vaccinations. She doesn't have to tell anyone about it, and her doctor can't either.
Well,
Well, it's because her child is autistic, I believe. That's
having
what's
sex with
Well, that's
Charlie
just
Sheen
genes,
does
clearly.
not constitute vaccination. Just because you had sex with Charlie Sheen does not mean that you can't get HIV. Just
Well,
wanted
so-
to
Well, if you had
did-
sex with Charlie Sheen, you probably should get vaccinated.
That's true.
Let's be honest.
You'll
You
probably
need to
have
tell-
to go to rehab.
You
need
need
to
to tell
see
people in Africa that though, because like people are raping children in Africa because they believe it prevents HIV, and they're giving it to the children because they're already infected.
What,
But
that has like a half-life of like 1 generation. That society would just destroy itself.
No, actually, it turns out that
That it
there is
works.
So
It
much
turns out that
rape.
it works.
No, it is creepy because it does work. They have
Oh,
raped each
fuck.
other so much that there are people who are now HIV immune. I mean, they're carriers of it, but they don't have any of the effects of it.
Wow, they've become the virus.
How fucked up is that?
That's intense.
That is an argument
Do you have
for
a
rape
source
right there
for
for
that?
survival.
They are
There-
living HIV.
There you go, Ben. Like, what do you do if like what if Jenny
Living
McCarthy is
AIDS.
telling everybody they can't get AIDS, and the only way to make her see the light and to stop saying that is to rape her with an AIDS stick? And show
We are so beyond the pale. This is, we have
11 out of 10.
we've jumped the moon at this point. I want to thank my guests for today. This was an edifying conversation. Really good to have. Harrelson, Zanish, Black Catz, thank you all very much for being on the program.
Thank you
My
so much.
pleasure.
Any final last words for the listeners before we say goodbye?
I'm not condoning raping Jenny McCarthy with Charlie Sheen.
That's the case you made. Everyone heard it. You can't go back on it now.
Hydrate, and
That was a hypothetical.
No,
Well,
you
so-
meant it. You were being truthful. You were being real.
I did
Um,
have one final counterpoint for Zanish. and
Go for
that's, So, with regard to not engaging Jenny McCarthy, that is a good idea and a bad idea at the same time. It's a good idea in that it doesn't get her any sort of publicity on your point, right? But at the same time, you could gain your own publicity on that point and then use it to help sway.
Well, I think though that like when you just make the argument academically against the points instead of the person, that you remove any chance of them ad homing or making things personal.
So that's the Bill Nye fucking shit.
Was it like
What
the
was
Bill
it?
Nye Ken Ham?
Yeah, the Ken Ham. Yeah.
I mean that debate was a farce.
It was
though.
a farce because it was held not in a neutral location, and Bill Nye was going way too soft. I think as a result of the fact
tried.
that it was in Ken Ham's backyard. That's why.
I don't think that's why he did it though. I think he did it to appeal to moderate Christians who are on the fence because the main argument that Christians push is, oh, atheists are mean and they're
And he-
nasty to us, and he completely went with that, soft spoken, non threatening.
Yeah,
In
which I
his
like.
head he's like, you
It's more
fucking
agnostic.
moron.
He gentlemaned it.
All right. Anyway, what about Harrelson? You got anything else to say to the people?
Something about zombies.
Maybe to Big Bootylicious. You got a personal message you want to send to him?
To Big Bootylicious, I say he needs to grow that fucking beard back. But yeah, just hydrate and re-enlist, guys.
All right, good to go. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on the program. This has been Busy from the Burbs. We appreciate all your support. If you were educated or entertained by this podcast, please click the PayPal link. We are supported 100% by your donations. Thank you very much. We'll catch you next time. World peace.